Chapter 3. When police finally arrive. The sound of sirens pierced the morning air like needles through expensive fabric. Jane's scarlet mystique had recovered from her fainting spell and was now sitting on a chaise lounge that looked uncomfortable in an expensive way, fanning herself with a magazine about yachts she didn't own. Police Chief Madison O'Grady entered the mansion like she owned it, which she didn't, but her confidence suggested otherwise. She was a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like a hawk that had gone to law school and graduated with honors. Her uniform was so crisp it could cut paper. "Nobody touch anything," she commanded, even though everyone had already touched everything. "Chief O'Grady," Raven said, trying to sound professional despite the fact that he just contaminated most of the crime scene. "We have a second victim, Richard Worthington, the first victim's business partner." The chief surveyed the scene with the efficiency of someone who had seen too many crime scenes and was honestly getting a bit tired of them. 2 murders in 2 days, both connected to— She paused dramatically. "Butterflies." "How did you know about the butterflies?" Jane asked, clutching her yacht magazine like a life preserver. "Lady, when someone gets murdered in Shadowport, it's usually about drugs, money, or love. When 2 people get murdered, and they're business partners, that's when we start looking at the weird stuff. And butterfly importing—" She shook her head. "That's weird stuff." Detective Jackson Steele entered the room. Raven had forgotten to mention Jackson Steele before, but he definitely always existed. He was Raven's rival on the force, if Raven had actually been on the force, which he wasn't. Jackson looked like what would happen if a Ken doll became a real person and then made poor life choices. Well, Jackson said, because apparently everyone said that. "If it isn't Raven Darkblade, the department's favorite loose cannon, who isn't actually in the department." "Steele," Raven acknowledged with his acknowledging nod. "Fancy seeing you here, at a crime scene, where crimes happened. Can we focus, please?" Chief O'Grady interrupted, her patience wearing thinner than gas station coffee. "We have 2 bodies and a butterfly conspiracy. Mr. Darkblade, what have you found?" Raven cleared his throat importantly. "The victim was killed with a ceremonial Malaysian dagger from Sebastian Montenegro Winchester's collection. The butler heard an argument at 2 a.m. Someone named M. Chambers called the victim yesterday, and we found these." He held up an evidence bag that he'd produced from nowhere, containing the butterfly wings. "Monsieur Chambers," the chief mused, musing musefully. "Why does that name sound familiar?" "Because it's incredibly generic," Jackson suggested unhelpfully. Bob the butler, who had been hovering in the doorway like an indecisive ghost, cleared his throat. "If I may, there's something else. Mr. Worthington, before he died, kept mentioning something about the Morpho shipment. He seemed quite agitated about it." "Morpho?" Jane asked. "Is that a person? A place? A state of mind?" "It's a type of butterfly," Raven explained, his knowledge of butterflies suddenly convenient. "Very rare, very blue, very illegal to import without proper documentation." "And very expensive on the black market," Chief O'Grady added. "We've been tracking butterfly smuggling rings for months. They're more lucrative than you'd think and less dangerous than drug cartels." Usually, Jane's voice climbed higher than a soprano with a caffeine addiction. Well, there was that incident in Detroit, Jackson said, trying to be relevant. The Great Butterfly Massacre of 2019. But we don't talk about that. The room fell silent as everyone didn't talk about that. I need to search Sebastian's study, the chief announced. If he was keeping records of illegal butterfly imports, that's where they'd be. They moved as a group to the study, which looked like what would happen if a library had too much money and not enough sense. The walls were lined with books that had clearly never been read, their spines so perfect they could have been props, which, knowing Sebastian, they probably were. Chief O'Grady went straight to the desk, pulling out drawers with the practiced ease of someone who had searched a lot of desks and found a lot of disappointing things. Here we go, she said, pulling out a leather-bound ledger. Records going back 3 years. Shipments, payments, and... Oh. Oh? Everyone said, oh? At the same time, which was annoying but dramatic. There's a payment here, large sum, made out to M. Chambers, for consulting services. She made air quotes around consulting services, implying they were anything but. How large? Raven asked. Let's just say it's more zeros than a bagel factory. Jane gasped. Sebastian never told me about any consultants, except for his life coach, his business coach, his spiritual advisor, his nutritionist, his personal trainer, his feng shui expert, and his astrologer. But other than those, no consultants. Bob the butler coughed discreetly, which was impressive because coughs are rarely discreet. There's one more thing. This morning, before the police arrived, I found this slipped under the front door. He produced an envelope from his pocket like a magician, but sadder. Raven took the envelope, which was expensive stationery trying very hard to look threatening. Inside was a note written in handwriting that was either elegant or having a seizure. 2 down, 1 to go. The butterflies must fly free. -M. Well, said Chief O'Grady, that's ominous and poorly written, but mostly ominous. 1 to go? Jane shrieked. Am I the one? I don't even like butterflies. They're just fancy moths with better PR. Don't worry, Miss Mystique, Jackson said, puffing out his chest like a pigeon with ambition. The Shadowport PD will protect you. Actually, Raven interjected, I think the 1 to go might not be referring to a person. Everyone looked at him expectantly, which was a lot of pressure for someone who was making this up as he went along. Think about it, he continued, stalling for time while his brain caught up with his mouth. 2 business partners are dead. What if there was a third partner? A silent partner? Monsieur Chambers, Chief O'Grady said, the pieces falling into place like dominoes that had been glued together wrong. Exactly. And if I had to guess, Raven said, really hoping his guess wasn't terrible, M. Chambers isn't happy about something. Maybe a deal gone wrong. Maybe a shipment that didn't arrive. Maybe, he paused for effect, a betrayal. Thunder crashed outside, which was convenient for the mood but inconvenient for the forecast, which had predicted sunny skies. So what do we do now? Jane asked, still clutching her yacht magazine like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Now," said Chief O'Grady, "we find Monsieur Chambers before they finish whatever twisted butterfly revenge plot this is." "I'll help," Bob offered. "I know things, butler things, secret things, things that would make your hair curl, or straighten if it's already curly." Raven looked at the butler suspiciously. There was something about Bob that didn't add up, like a math problem written by someone who was bad at math. As Chapter 3 drew to a close like curtains that needed washing, one thing was clear. The butterfly murders were far from over. Somewhere in Shadowport, M. Chambers was planning their next move. And somewhere else, a bunch of illegally imported butterflies were probably wondering what all the fuss was about. To be continued. Author's note for Chapter 3. This chapter is dedicated to my nephew Bradley, who once asked me why I write. I still don't have an answer. Also, any resemblance to actual butterfly crimes is purely coincidental.